For the Clippers Sunday in Dallas, they won by 5 after blowing a 31-point lead and not having Kawhi Leonard. Leonard is still dealing with inflammation in his right knee. Paul George and James Harden stepped up big time in Kawhi's absence. Both dropped 33 points. Harden scored 15 of his in the fourth quarter. The first-round series is tied at 2 apiece. Game 5 is Wednesday night in L.A. One of the greatest players in the history of women's basketball announced her retirement Sunday. Candace Parker said goodbye after 16 seasons in the WNBA, 13 with the LA Sparks. The 38-year-old Parker won WNBA titles with the Sparks, Las Vegas Aces, and Chicago Sky. She also was a 2-time WNBA MVP, a 2-time Olympic gold medalist, and won 2 NCAA championships at Tennessee. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is the fastest growing talk radio station in Southern California, home to 50,000 watts and an audience reach of 12 million listeners. KBLA Talk 1580 is a pioneer for Black audio content, including our groundbreaking $2 million climate justice campaign and the most loyal, influential audience. According to an independent research study by the polling firm Aviterus, for the second consecutive year, KBLA Talk 1580 is the most trustworthy, reliable, and credible news source for Black audiences and beyond in Southern California. Let KBLA Talk 1580 power your advertising dollars. Our omni-channel custom marketing solutions are specifically tailored to connect with your ideal target audience. We leverage audio, podcasts, streaming, digital, social media, and local activations to get your message out to the Black community. Get in touch with our advertising team today at advertising@KBLA1580.com. That's advertising@KBLA1580.com. KBLA 1580. We've got you Black.
1, 2, 3, go! Try to keep it coming. Things ain't always smooth, but I'll be alright as long as I can find the groove. Yes, I will. Yeah. Somehow I know that I can make it. You seem to like my style. Don't you worry, I'm gonna be around a while.
Live from historic Leimert Park in Los Angeles, California, I'm Tavis, Smiley, and I'm so glad to see you and me back in stride again. Before we get started with today's show, let me invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley, and get updates on X, that's formerly Twitter, at Tavis Smiley. By the way, should you miss any part of today's program or want to catch up on previous shows, you can always visit thetavissmileyshow.com. That's thetavissmileyshow.com, or wherever you get your podcast, and listen to the Tavis Smiley podcast version of this live program at your leisure. Another great show on tap for you today. In our second hour, 2 conversations. Up first, Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vendeman on the Trump trials, the escalating war in Ukraine, and his cameo in the series finale of Curb Your Enthusiasm, on the B-side of Hour 2.
My name is Nelson Mandela. I look back to the achievements not of individuals, but to the achievements of collective action. A group of men and women. That is the nature of our struggle. Without that struggle, we would still be under apartheid. It is always important to look at your history. You can't really be proud of yourself if you don't know your history.
hard to imagine that it's been 30 years since the end of apartheid in South Africa, and on the B side of the second hour, we will celebrate 30 years since that key historic moment. We'll talk about how far South Africa has come in meeting its freedom goals on the backside of hour three. Hour two, I should say, with former Clinton administration Ambassador Charles Stith, who also serves as non-executive chairman of the African Presidential Leadership Center in Johannesburg. We'll do that on the B side, once again, of hour two. In our third hour, the Equalizers' Tory Kittles joins us to talk about playing Frederick Douglass, Paul Robeson, and Queen Latifah's love interest. But in this first hour today, two more conversations. On the B side of this hour, U.S. Representative Jasmine Crockett of Texas breaks down her plan to offer tax breaks as part of U.S. reparations. But let's commence today's show talking politics with popular Washington Post contributing opinion columnist Theodore Johnson. His forthcoming text is called "If We Are Brave, Essays from Black Americana." Johnson writes, and I quote, "The United States claims to be a nation founded on an idea, but Americans do not agree on what that idea is, what it should do, or who it is for. We use the same words, but do not speak the same language," close quote. I am pleased to welcome Theodore Johnson to this program. Ted Johnson, how are you today, sir?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I appreciate you having me on.
It's good to have you on. Thanks for the time. Want to make the most of it. Let me just jump right in with this. We'll get to the book and a few other things I want to cover. A lot of breaking news, as always, any day these days, but certainly at the start of the week. The story that will not abate is the story that we've been covering for days now, it seems, of these protests on college campuses all across the country. Literally hundreds of students arrested over the weekend. I don't need to call it much more than that. What's your read of these growing protests and the way that schools are or are not handling these protests?
Yeah, it's such an interesting set of circumstances. I mean, I'm a little too young to remember this in real life, but it feels a lot like the Vietnam War era, where it was the youngest Americans, folks on college campuses that tend to be more progressive, more anti-war than the rest of society, that are calling the government to account for their actions overseas, and are doing so by exerting pressure externally on the political apparatus through campus protest. So this is new. This is as American as apple pie for folks to do this. What is also as American as apple pie is the response from institutions in power to disperse protest. And more times than not, law enforcement, whether you're a university, a city council, a private corporation, law enforcement are the folks that are first called to try to break the protest, to get people to stop sort of disrupting society. And that's what we're watching play out. Now, it's almost beside the point now on what side of the ideological argument folks are, because the confrontation is creating its own spectacle, and its own set of questions about liberty and equality and the rights of people to speak freely and protest. So the campus protests have actually compounded the issue or complicated the issue by introducing First Amendment and sort of safe community conversations into one that's ostensibly mostly about war and human rights.
When we come forward, I want to talk about that part, as they say, the confrontation as spectacle. I love the phrase, the way you put it, and that's why he's an opinion columnist. He knows how to turn a phrase. The confrontation as spectacle in and of itself. We'll talk about that and a great deal more with Ted Johnson from the Washington Post, author of the forthcoming book, If We Are Brave, Essays from Black Americana. We'll get into that as well when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Hope, agency, dignity. This is Tavis Smiley.
Can you dig it? Come on!
Hey y'all, Mona Swain here from Target's new YouTube series, My Cart is Full, where we feature Black founders and creators highlighting their connection to our community. As an actor and content creator, I love using my voice to inspire young Black women who look like me. When it comes to feeding my shine, seeing myself reflected in Black-owned and founded products at Target brings me joy. Together, we are Black Beyond Measure. Learn more at target.com/blackbeyondmeasure.
Cookie wants to be a professional wrestler. I'm Cookie Serratos, and I'm 11 years old.
She also wants to win all the medals. That's why Cookie and her family make every day count, squeezing out her best with Go-Go Squeeze.
Okay, Cookie, let's break for a Go-Go Squeeze.
Go-Go Squeeze Fruit on the Go pouches are a nutritious snack made from 100% fruit with no sugar added.
Call Cookie!
Because when you nurture your kids, you squeeze out the best in them. Squeeze out the best with Go-Go Squeeze. Not a low-calorie food. Products range from 11 to 13 grams of sugar and 60 to 70 calories per serving.
City of Los Angeles landlords, verify your tenant's emergency renters assistance program status today. Tenants approved for rental assistance are protected from eviction for non-payment of rent through May 31st, 2024. Approved rental assistance applications protect tenants from eviction for non-payment of rent. Refusing to accept rental assistance based on their source of income is illegal under law and can be used as a defense in an eviction case. Check your tenant's application status now at housing.lacity.org. That's housing.lacity.org.
Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Hey guys, did you know there's a generic form of Viagra that works just the same but is 95% cheaper? And you can get it online at hims.com/joy. Through Hims, you'll get a free medical consultation to determine the ED medication that's best for you. Discreet shipping if prescribed, a 100% online process, and a range of treatment options, including trusted generic alternatives to the name brands, at up to 95% off. ED is personal, and at Hims, so is treating it. Just go to hims.com/joy and get connected to a licensed medical provider online for free, with zero copay, no expensive appointments, and no awkward face-to-face conversations. To start your free online visit, you need to go to this exclusive address, hims.com/joy. That's hims.com/joy for your free online visit. HIMS.com/JOY.
The thing no one tells you about periods is that your flow changes every day, and so should your tampon size. Tampax has 5 absorbencies to match your changing flow. If it hurts to remove, go down a size. If it leaks, go up a size. Only Tampax has a leak guard braid to help give you up to 100% leak and odor-free protection. All-day comfort and protection for under $5 a month. Based on average U.S. consumer usage at manufacturer's suggested price. However, pricing is at the sole discretion of the retailer. Excludes 8-count pack.
Smart talk for curious people just like you. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Ted Johnson of the Washington Post. Ted, that phrase you used earlier, unpack it for me. The confrontation as spectacle on these college campuses.
Yeah, it's a way of changing the conversation, frankly, and it's not that the concerns aren't real. I mean, people's safety and their well-being, these things matter, but the confrontation itself becomes the point of conversation instead of the reason for protest. We saw the same thing after George Floyd's murder. It was as if government was saying, Donald Trump in particular, that, whatever the nation may think about race or racism or racial justice, George Floyd, police brutality, all these big questions, none of it matters until y'all act right. And once people learn how to act right, stop looting and stealing from stores and using protests as a cover for crime, then maybe a conversation about racial justice can be had. But until then, there's nothing to talk about. And it's ridiculous. If acting right was the way forward on questions of liberty and freedom and equality, we would already have it. The protest is because government has not fulfilled its end of the bargain, and protest is a backlash to that. So we can't be distracted. Again, very big questions, very important things happening on college campuses, but that is a separate conversation from what's happening in Israel and Gaza. And we can have both of those conversations at the same time without allowing the campus conflicts to sort of win the day in the news cycle and distract us from other issues that are going on.
Let me expand our purview just a little bit more broadly here, if I can. There's so many fault lines, Ted, as you know, around and along this particular conversation. But one of those fault lines is, and I'm paying more and more attention to this, one of those fault lines is the way these demonstrations, these protests are dividing the Democratic Party in a major election year. Let me just tell a quick story watching my time here. So yesterday, I attended church here in Los Angeles, where this show emanates live from every day across the country. And I wasn't at my home church. I attend a little small church But yesterday, a friend of mine was in town and was the main speaker, the morning speaker at a major mega church in this city. I mean, thousands and thousands of members. The place holds thousands of people. If you're in LA, and but a few choices to choose from, a few options to choose from, it was a black church, so you know what I'm talking about, right? So he was speaking yesterday at this major church. And I pay attention to these things, as do you, and those of us who do what you and I do. We pay attention to these things others may not be really tapped into. So in his sermon yesterday, he made reference to the fact that now is just not the time for us to be giving Joe Biden a hard time. That Donald Trump is an existential threat to this democracy, and that whatever our grievances are, legitimate or otherwise, and he made the point, we got to hold folk accountable, but now is just not the time to be messing with Joe Biden, given the threat that Donald Trump represents. And I sat there in this church packed with thousands of people, and I listened and paid attention to the very, very tepid response of this audience. And that said something to me. You cannot be in a black megachurch, a black progressive megachurch with this many people, and you give a shout out to Joe Biden, and the applause was scant. It reminded me of that scene in Coming to America. After our boy had performed on stage, and the audience was like,
right. No bride to be in this one.
Exactly. If you know Coming to America, you know the scene. The applause was scant, and he did exit stage left, right? You all remember the scene. That's what it felt like in this church yesterday. And I sat there in that seat, and I was like, my Lord, Joe Biden is in trouble. Because even though black people understand the threat that Donald Trump is, I don't think it's a winning strategy to tell me to save the democracy one more again. Negroes have done that repeatedly. We have saved this democracy over and over and over again. I digress for now. You take my point. I'll come back to that later in the show, perhaps. But I see these fault lines inside the Democratic Party, and that was a major fault line that I sort of picked up on yesterday. I digress. Your thoughts?
No, you're right. I mean, look, in the civil rights era, there's a lot to be made of black civil rights activists working with Jewish funders or Jewish lawyers and activists from the North to try to transform the South. And so in the civil rights era, it would almost seem that there's a kind of has been a natural allegiance in one way or another, but there's always been tension alongside that allegiance. And what this question is putting before the black community now, this question of Israel and Palestine and Gaza, is about allegiances. It's about power versus people. It's about minority rights versus majority rights. It's all of the questions that have governed life in America for black folks, but dropped in another locale. And we're not a political monolith. Black folks see politics differently, see issues differently. So it shouldn't be surprising that that black folks have differing opinions on this. But to your point, the idea that you either protest or you vote, that you're either unhappy with the administration or you love it and participate in democracy is a false choice. We don't have to make the choice. We can protest and vote. We can disagree and vote. A lot of the people that died, black folks in particular for our country, died for the right to access democracy, for the right to vote. So to not exercise it or to treat it like it's expendable just because you disagree on some maybe very core issues with the sitting president or other nominees doesn't mean you abdicate the right to exercise this hard-won right on the backs of, on the blood and sweat of many folks over a generation. So I just say, if you want to protest, fine. If you want to be unhappy with Biden, fine. But still exercise your right to vote and do what's best for the country, for our democracy, for the greater good.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you can both protest and vote, but I'm getting really, really disturbed by these persons who are suggesting that we shouldn't have any critique of Joe Biden right now just because of the threat that Trump represents. I don't see that as a winning strategy. And as I've said before in this program, Ted, and want to get your temperature on this right quick, Joe Biden very shrewdly, there are a number of words I could use, adjectives, but very shrewdly, I think strategically, and I might add even brilliantly, suggested in South Carolina on the advice of one James Clyburn that if he were elected, he'd put a black woman on the U.S. Supreme Court. He did that. But as we all recall, the minute he made that commitment, black women lined up behind Joe Biden and they saved his candidacy. And as I've said many times, don't sell black folks short. By saving his candidacy, we also saved the democracy. We didn't just do one, we did both. We saved his campaign, and in so doing, I think saved his democracy. I think that Joe Biden needs another moment like that. I'm telling you, and I keep telling the Democratic Party, just telling Negroes that you should vote once again to save the democracy from this guy is not a dog that's going to hunt, I believe, in this particular election. So it raises the question as to what Joe Biden is going to do akin to the KBJ promise, before we knew it was KBJ. What he's going to do akin to that to motivate these black folk to get out this time around. And I had a guest on this program last week who suggested that one of the ways to do that is to just simply say, I am going to establish a reparations commission. Now, we know ain't nothing going to get done between now and November, but you gave us a Juneteenth holiday that didn't nobody even ask for. We'll take it. We ain't going to give it back, but didn't nobody ask for it, right? But just to say I am going to establish a reparations commission, as my friend Gavin Newsom did out in California, and we'll at least begin this conversation. That would excite and energize the black base and might get them to turn out. That's just one suggestion made by one guest last week. I don't know if that's the end all be all, but I do know, or at least I feel in my spirit, and this ain't my first rodeo, that they're going to have to do something. But just telling black folk to vote for the purposes of saving the democracy, I just don't see that being the answer to the prayer, Ted Johnson.
No, you're right. You're right. The other guy is worse, is not a winning electoral strategy.
Yes.
And especially for black folks. And so you're right. I mean, there's going to have to be something. And I don't know what that something is. Maybe it's, perhaps reparations. The polling I've seen suggests that even black folks are divided, not about the question of reparations, but how to do it.
How to define it,
and,
yeah.
there's different kind of schemes.
Mm-hmm.
But look, presidents in the past have created civil rights commissions. Lyndon Baines Johnson did it. Truman did it. You don't have to wait for a law to pass to establish a commission, a congressional commission. Presidents can establish commissions by executive order anytime they want to. The problem Biden has, and the challenge, he's a pragmatic man, I think, is that if he were to take that step, how many white voters would he lose by suggesting a presidential commission on reparations is the right thing? And that's the balance of the Democratic Party. Can you mobilize black folks without demobilizing or deterring white voters who might be somewhat inclined to not vote or vote for Trump?
Well, now this is getting good, because what you've just done, Ted Johnson, whether you intended to or not, and you're brilliant, so I assume you did, you just flipped the frame. Here's my point. If Biden were to do that, then the good white folk would have to answer the question about how existential the threat is of Donald Trump, and not the Negroes. Why do we have to buy that argument? But the good white folk ain't got to buy that argument.
Right. It's not on us to save democracy. When black folks save democracy, all we are doing is trying to save ourselves.
That's right.
Trying to preserve our safety, security, access to liberty, democracy, et cetera. Democracy is the beneficiary of inclusion of black folks. So the United States benefits when black folks are empowered. So our saving democracy is not all altruism. A lot of that is because we as a people want to survive and have our place in the country, and democracy is the means to do it.
Yeah, I just don't buy that argument that you can be afraid of losing the white vote but not be afraid of losing the black vote. That's the wrong frame for me.
That's right. That's right.
I don't like that. I don't like it at all. Watching my time here, I want to get to your book here in just a second and just tease it up before it comes out a little bit later. But one question, you can't do this without asking at least one Trump question, even though I prefer not to. The other guy is on the ballot or will be on the ballot in all these states. It appears, a big story today in the New York Times, Washington Post, one of these papers. I know you with the Washington Post. I read so many things before coming on the air. But a big story, I think, in the Times about the fact that Donald Trump, it appears, is going to be able to at least run the clock out on facing any legal ramifications of all the things he's been accused of. And that really does sort of now set the frame, because we keep reading his polls that if he's convicted, his numbers go down. But now we just don't know how that story is going to play out. Your thoughts on that right quick?
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I don't think if he is not convicted prior to the election, I don't think a pending conviction is going to influence the votes of people on the fence even. I think folks have pretty much made up their mind. If he's on the ballot, they're either voting for him or they're not. And so I think it'll play out as a lot of the polls have suggested, which is that Trump will probably do a little bit better with black voters than he did last time, which, again, will be below the historical average over the last 4 or 5 decades. And I think the last poll I saw also said that when Robert Kennedy is on the same ballot, Trump finishes third behind Kennedy, with all of Biden, Biden basically giving up black voters to Kennedy when there's a third person on there. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens, but I don't think the pending charges or the pending potential of being incarcerated is going to affect Trump's chances in November unless he actually is incarcerated, and that looks like it's not going to happen.
Yeah, and that makes the point even more. Beyond Bobby Kennedy, there's our friend and brother Cornel West. There's Jill Stein.
West, right.
There are others who are nipping at his heels. And again, as I suggested moments ago, I don't know what the answer is. It ain't my job. But if they don't figure something out that is akin to the KBJ promise 4 years ago, and you got folk nipping at your heels like you didn't have 4 years ago, siphoning off votes a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there. All it takes is a little bit to lose. He only won Michigan.
Right.
He only won Michigan by 3 points last time. So you ain't got a whole lot to sacrifice anyway. And I just don't know how long it's going to take for the Biden people to figure this out. I digress for now. In the 4 minutes I have left, let me pivot to your book, your forthcoming book, If We Are Brave, Essays from Black Americana. I love the title, If We Are Brave. Unpack that for me for starters.
Yeah, so this is essentially a book all about what we've been talking about for the last half hour here. What is the future of the country? What role do black people play in shaping that future? And what does that say about the different issues and elections and things that the country is grappling with? And I tackle these questions: affirmative action, police brutality, the state of democracy, in a set of 8 essays that I think folks are going to love. The bottom core idea of the whole thing is that the future of this country is contingent on the inclusion of black folks. Mm-hmm. The United States cannot die without us, and it cannot live without us, and it cannot die without our permission. Mm. And that is a power that Black America has, and this book tries to tell that particular story in a set of essays.
When you say "if we are brave," who's the we?
Yeah, so it is we as black people and we as Americans. We, the United States, are we brave enough to confront the truth about the role race has played in shaping an unjust and legacies of those who came before us, and demand that America be better than it has been, and not that the thing needs to be burned to the ground or dismantled or anything like. We will improve this project that we put a lot of blood and sweat and tears into over the last 250 years plus.
I guess the question, Ted Johnson, is whether or not that is, in fact, an open question. Is it really an open question about whether or not America is brave enough to do that? Is the jury already in on that question?
Yeah, the question is we better be brave. There's no option here. We can't check out and expect things to just get better. We can't engage and insist that everyone accept everything that we want without compromise. This is going to take some negotiation, a bit of a compromise, a little bit of a dance. That's what democracies are. We deliberate and we agree to abide by the decisions when the process is fair and just. But it doesn't mean the conversation is over. It doesn't mean that we give up our principles. It just means that we're willing to engage in this thing that we help to build in order to make it better for those who come after us. Yeah. And it's an open question because it's not inevitable. Mm-hmm. We may not be brave enough to make this thing work, but we better be if we hope to, again, not squander the sacrifices of previous generations.
I got 45 seconds here. Say a quick word about the line I quoted from you earlier in the text. We use the same words, but do not speak the same language.
That's right. When folks say, do you believe in democracy? Some people are essentially asking, do you believe that the way I think America should be shaped is the right way, to the exclusion of all others? And so because we don't really define who democracy is for, who should be able to call government to the carpet and to make demands of them, who holds status to demand equal treatment, then we can talk about the process of democracy, the process of inclusion all we want to, but we have a society structured in a way that disenfranchises and excludes some folks because of their class, their race, their religious beliefs, their nation of origin. This nation will be whatever we build it to be, and Black folks will need to be at the forefront to make sure it's a fair and equal, just society. His name is Ted Johnson, to be exact, Theodore R. Johnson. He's a contributing columnist for the Washington Post, senior advisor at New America, Navy vet, HBCU educated. Go ahead and shout it out right quick. Hampton U. There you go.
Hampton U. And I see some symbol here that says he belongs to some fraternity, but I don't recognize it.
I think you do. The Omega Psi Phi fraternity.
Yeah, I ain't mad at him. His forthcoming book is called If We Are Brave, Essays from Black Americana. Ted, all the best to you. We'll do it again, my friend. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. I look forward to it.
More Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
What's your quarrel with the world? You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Paid for by government.com. Did you know? The United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time. Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish, minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first ever 99.9% pure silver proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Texas is suing to stop changes to Title IX. The federal regulation is supposed to protect against sex-based discrimination in schools, but it's being expanded by the Biden White House to include gender identity. In a statement, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton says that destroys protections for women. He fears it would force schools to permit biological males to use female restrooms and locker rooms. O.J. Simpson's cause of death is now public. His longtime attorney told TMZ he died of cancer after spending months in hospice. The African-American former football star, acquitted of a high-profile double murder in 1995, first shared his battle with an unspecified cancer in May of 2023. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Wendy's new Cinnabon Pull-Apart is here to satisfy morning cravings with its warm, sweet cinnamon sugar rolled dough, ooey-gooey texture, and signature cream cheese frosting. Get the best part in every bite this morning with Wendy's new Cinnabon Pull-Apart, only at participating U.S. Wendy's. Mother's Day is coming up, and Macy's Backstage has amazing deals on great gifts that Mom is going to love, all for $15 and under. Get low prices every day at Macy's Backstage. Find a store near you today at macysbackstage.com. Off price, on trend, arriving daily.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
A monumental win for the Clippers Sunday in Dallas. They won by 5 after blowing a 31-point lead and not having Kawhi Leonard. Leonard is still dealing with inflammation in his right knee. Paul George and James Harden stepped up big time in Kawhi's absence. Both dropped 33 points. Harden scored 15 of his in the fourth quarter. The first-round series is tied at 2 apiece. Game 5 is Wednesday night in L.A. One of the greatest players in the history of women's basketball announced her retirement Sunday. Candace Parker said goodbye after 16 seasons in the WNBA, 13 with the LA Sparks. The 38-year-old Parker won WNBA titles with the Sparks, Las Vegas Aces, and Chicago Sky. She also was a 2-time WNBA MVP, a 2-time Olympic gold medalist, and won 2 NCAA championships at Tennessee. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
If we're the ones disproportionately impacted by these climate catastrophes,
Why should we be silent?
turning up the volume all year long on the climate conversation with KBLA Talk 1580.
I have diabetes. I'm at risk for pneumococcal pneumonia.
I have asthma. I'm at risk too.
If you're 19 or older with chronic conditions like asthma, diabetes, COPD, or heart disease, or are 65 or older, you are at increased risk for pneumococcal pneumonia. Ask your doctor or pharmacist about Prevnar 20, pneumococcal 20-valent conjugate vaccine, a Pfizer vaccine that can help protect you against pneumococcal pneumonia in just 1 dose. Even if you've already been vaccinated with other pneumonia vaccines, Prevnar 20 may help provide added protection. Prevnar 20 is approved for adults to help prevent infections from 20 strains of the bacteria that cause pneumococcal pneumonia. Continued approval may depend on a supportive study. Don't get Prevnar 20 if you've had a severe allergic reaction to the vaccine or its ingredients. Adults with weakened immune systems may have a lower response to the vaccine. Side effects include pain and swelling at the injection site, fatigue, headache, muscle, and joint pain. For full prescribing information, please call 1-855-213-2138 or visit Prevnar20.com.
If you love to travel, Capital One has a rewards credit card that's perfect for you. With Venture X, earn unlimited double miles on everything you buy and turn everyday purchases into extraordinary trips. Plus, receive premium travel benefits like access to over 1,300 airport lounges where you just check in and chill out. Open up a world of possibilities with Capital One. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. Lounge access is subject to change. See CapitalOne.com for details.
Some days I cover up because of my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis.
Now I'm hitting the road with clearer skin thanks to Skyrizi, Rizumkizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection for adults who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy. With Skyrizi, 3 out of 4 people achieved 90% clearer skin at 4 months. And Skyrizi is just 4 doses a year after 2 starter doses.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
Thanks to Skyrizi, there's nothing on my skin, and that means everything.
Your doctor today about Skyrizi, the #1 dermatologist prescribed biologic in psoriasis, and visit skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKY-RIZZI to learn more.
Let's get back to more of Tavis Smiley right now.
Let's introduce U.S. Representative Jasmine Crockett to this conversation right now. Democrat of Texas. I'm honored to have her on this program. Congresswoman Crockett, how are you today?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
If I complained, I'd be an ingrate. I'm delighted to have you on the program, and I thank you for these 30 minutes or less that we have. Let me just start right in. Actually, let me just do this. I was just talking to Ted Johnson, a brilliant writer for the Washington Post, and he and I both agreed that at the moment, it is not a winning strategy for the Democratic Party, and I am unapologetically progressive, but I don't believe, nor does Ted believe, that it's a winning strategy necessarily for black voters to tell them to save the democracy one more again, and that you should vote for this guy because he's better than the other guy. The other guy represents a threat to our democracy. I get all that, and all that's true. I just don't know that that is a winning strategy, say that I'm better than the other guy, without clearly articulating and defining that. I said moments ago that when Biden ran the last time, he made a major commitment to black people that if he were elected, he'd put somebody in particular, a black woman, on the U.S. Supreme Court. He kept his word. There are a number of things that I think the president promised and about which he kept his word. And yet we find ourselves in a moment where there's got to be a different strategy as far as I'm concerned. And I don't know what that is. One guest on this program last week, as I said moments ago, suggested that the way for Biden to save the day for himself and for the democracy and to secure the black vote, which is tepid and soft, as all the polls keep indicating, is to make a similar commitment. Last time it was the Supreme Court justice, a black woman. But what if he said now, I am going to establish a reparations commission? We'll talk in a moment about this idea of offering tax breaks for black folk as a part of reparations. But give me your sense. You're a member of Congress, and I know you're a Democrat, and you're going to give me some of the party line. I ain't mad at you about that. That's your job. But I'm asking you honestly. Whether you feel the excitement coming from black people that Joe Biden is going to have to tap into to pull this thing off.
Listen, I'm going to be real with you. So I am a Democrat, but I also want to win. And part of winning is acknowledging where you're weak. Mm-hmm. And we do have some weaknesses, and you're absolutely pointing them out. I think a lot of our weaknesses exist around the fact that there, yes, were a lot of promises that were made, and yes, there were promises that were fulfilled, but people also don't know what this administration has done above and beyond. And I have tried to figure out, why is it that people don't know these things? And then I sit there and I'm like, you know what? I'm in the bubble, and I have to reach out to really ascertain all that has been accomplished. And so it's either a communications problem, or it's just that they have done so much that it's hard to actually push it all out. So I do want to agree with you to the extent that we absolutely have to tell black people, number one, this is what we have done specifically for you. Mm-hmm. And number two, this is what we will do going forward for you. And yes, the two can be, both can be true without necessarily being, even though it sounds like they may be opposing views. Yeah, the other guy is trash, point blank period. Mm-hmm. No question about it. And I won't stop saying that. But I also will say that this administration has invested a record number of dollars into HBCUs in a time in which we are living with a court that is anti-Black folk, and when I say anti-Black folk, I'm talking specifically about them trying to decimate affirmative action and taking that particular case and trying to translate that into also saying, you know what? Anybody that's going out and trying to give money specifically to Black businesses, that is a problem too. They are trying to extrapolate and extend that opinion that specifically was focused on education, in addition to the fact that we know that when it comes to education, if we look at it and if we look at who is disproportionately impacted by student loan debt, we have promises made by this administration. And again, it was the Supreme Court that went after them and basically cut them off at the knees, but the administration continues to push back. And so when we look at the numbers, we know that this administration has invested over $7 billion into HBCUs. That is historic. That has never been done. To be clear, the last administration did a reauthorization of $253 million, $7 billion versus $253 million. There is no comparison. That is money that is directly impacting Black folk for generations. In addition to that, as we start to talk about this wealth gap and we talk about what is the easiest way to build wealth in this country, well, it's by buying a home. Well, when your debt to income ratio is all jacked up because you have this huge amount of student loan debt, that prevents you from being able to start to build that generational wealth. And so right now, while the Supreme Court did what they did, this administration has provided student loan debt relief for over 4 million people. When you look at the numbers, that is a disproportionate positive impact on Black folks specifically, having that student loan debt relieved. And they just announced that they are actually going to push out and try to provide relief for additional millions of people in the form of billions of dollars. So there are things that have been done. Yes, we got the first Black woman on the Supreme Court, and she has been amazing. If anybody's had a chance to tune into any of the oral arguments that have come before the court. But beyond that, this administration has also put more Black women onto benches than all administrations combined. That's not something that people necessarily feel today. These are things that you will feel down the road and know that the impact is positive. And the final thing that I'll say is when we talk about environmental injustice and what that looks like, everyone thinks of Flint, Michigan, but I've got news for everybody that's listening. We have a Flint, Michigan in every single urban center that has people of color. End of story. Whether it's a matter of it's the actual pipes and or if it's just the air, or if it's the water, or if it's the soil. We know that Black communities have historically been dumping grounds for these large corporations. So they have made historic investments into making sure that they could right those wrongs. And that is money that my Republican colleagues right now are talking about. We need to go ahead and recapture that money, stop giving money to those communities. And I personally have been able to send millions of dollars into my community to make sure that we could start doing some cleanup.
Yep. No, I celebrate that last point. We are in the midst of a multi-million-dollar year-long climate justice campaign at my home station here in Los Angeles. This program, of course, is heard across the country, but here in L.A., we are aggressively addressing the issue of climate justice, climate equity, climate resilience, specifically as it relates to the African-American community. When we come forward, I want to get to the issue around which or about which or for which I invited Representative Jasmine Crockett of Texas on this program. She was in a conversation not long ago, and the issue came up of offering tax breaks for Black folk as a part of reparations, and she offered her commentary in that conversation, and the Republicans lost their minds all over social media. They went in on Jasmine Crockett about her comments, specifically related to the notion of tax breaks for Black folk as part of reparations. We'll talk about that part when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Interrogating and unpacking. That's what we do around here. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
Oh, this cold.
Honey?
Honey?
Honey, you need DayQuil Severe Honey.
DayQuil Severe Honey gives you powerful cold and flu symptom relief with a honeylicious taste, because life doesn't stop for a cold.
Okay, I'm ready to go.
Now I'm getting a cold.
Honey.
Try DayQuil Severe Honey for powerful cold and flu relief. DayQuil Severe with honey flavor. The daytime coughing, aching, stuffy head, fever, honeylicious, power through your day medicine. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Pizza's here.
Oh, great. I'd love some, but I'm worried about my stomach issues.
If you're worried about having diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose, oily stools, it may not just be stomach issues. It could be a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and talk to your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
We used to argue about whose turn it was to clean the gutters, but then I had Leaf Filter gutter protection installed.
Wait, I told you Leaf Filter had free inspections and estimates and a lifetime guarantee.
Meaning we never have to argue about whose turn it is to clean the gutters again.
But I visited leaffilter.com/beacon first.
No, I did.
It doesn't matter who. Visit leaffilter.com/beacon to schedule your free gutter inspection and get up to 30% off today.
See representative for warranty details. Promotion is 20% off plus a 10% senior or military discount. 1 discount per household.
Did you know that feeling sluggish or weighed down could be a sign that your digestive system isn't working at its best? Taking Metamucil every day can help. Metamucil fiber powders help promote your daily digestive health using a plant-based fiber called psyllium. The gelling action of this special fiber traps and removes waste, so you can feel lighter and more energetic. Metamucil, promoting digestive health for a better you. Learn more at metamucil.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
He's rooting for everybody black. Everybody black. More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now.
More of U.S. Representative Jasmine Crockett coming your way right now. Democrat of Texas, of course. Delighted to have her on this program. So I teed this up a moment ago, Representative Crockett, that you were in this conversation, and this issue of offering tax breaks for black folk as part of reparations came up, and you offered your own commentary, and as they say, all hell broke loose. Tell me about that moment.
I don't worry about these fools. You know, and honestly, only a hit dog will holler because, you know, basically I was engaged in a conversation. I was doing an interview, and the interviewer wanted to know my view on reparations. And obviously, as a black woman in this country who has recognized the long-standing disparities that we continue to struggle to get over, and I say we, yeah, I am sitting in Congress, and I am still one of less than 60 black women ever elected to Congress in the entire, you know, existence of the United States. And so there are those that want to argue that if you ascertain a certain level of accomplishment, then obviously you have overcome, and that's not true, right? And so I do want to make sure I level set with that. Long story short, I honestly don't believe, if I'm being just straight up, that this country will ever be at the point that they'll say, you know what, we'll hand out checks that are similar to the stimulus checks, but actually are more money. I just don't see that happening. But number one, we need to at least study reparations. And that's one of the things that I said is, like, we should be able to agree that there should be a study on reparations. Number two, I said, if we come up with some kind of conclusion, one of the things that I think maybe we could get done, if we could get anything done, would be around some sort of taxes, some sort of tax relief, right? And the fact that they lost their minds is just so wild to me, because we know that basically these billionaires and millionaires have been getting tax breaks and tax hookups. In fact, that's what Trump promised at his last fundraiser at Mar-a-Lago, was like, hey, put me back in the game and I got y'all's back. In fact, we ended up with our debt being just decimated to the point of $8 trillion that was added to our debt under his administration in one freaking term, which was a record. And it was because he decided to decrease the income that we had coming into this country because he gave tax breaks to those folks. Or we know about those times that the airlines have been bailed out. Mm-hmm. We know that the auto companies have been bailed out. So nobody loses their minds, or even when it came down to PPP, we know that they were bailing out so many companies that didn't need the money, and the small businesses were the ones that were struggling to access the funds. So I'm like, listen, y'all been giving out free dollars, tax dollars, for a very long time. And so you want to lose your mind because I propose that people who basically built this country just have a little bit of relief in the form of tax breaks, not the actual dollars, but literally tax breaks, is beyond me. So I'm just like, whatever. But, you know, I don't know what the solution is. I do think that we need to make sure that there's some forward movement. And I thought I was being creative because they don't get mad when Trump do it for the rich people. So I don't know why they mad at me, but you know.
Well, there's that part. There's that part, as they say. When we come forward in our remaining moments with Representative Jasmine Crockett out of Texas, to her point that she does believe that we need to study this, that takes us full circle to the point we really started this conversation talking about, as a continuation of my conversation with Ted Johnson earlier in this hour, about whether or not the president would be immeasurably benefited by at least announcing he's establishing a reparations commission. He could do that through executive order. If he did that, since she believes that we do have to study this, if the president did that right now in this campaign, would that save the day with black voters? And once again, not just save his campaign, but save this democracy from authoritarianism and from perhaps even anarchy. We'll do that part when we come forward in our remaining moments with Representative Jasmine Crockett on Tavis Smiley.
For all the freedom-loving folk, this is Tavis Smiley.
I feel like freedom. If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking, now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SaveByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Stay Housed LA has the resources you need to know your rights and the legal support to back them up. The COVID-19 pandemic has cost people their jobs and livelihoods. This has left an estimated 1/3 of households not being able to make rent and facing losing their homes. This is a fear no one in our community should have to face. You have rights, though, and Stay Housed LA is here to help. Stay Housed LA is a partnership between the County of Los Angeles, the City of Los Angeles, and local community and legal service providers. Together, they provide tenants with the information and support needed to exercise their rights so they can remain safely in their homes. Find out more about your rights by participating in a virtual tenant workshop. Get the legal assistance you need. Find additional resources in Los Angeles County and the City of Los Angeles. Stay connected to Stay Housed LA County for updates. This and more at stayhousedla.org. Stay connected to Stay Housed LA for updates. This and more at stayhousedla.org. That's stayhousedla.org. Or call their hotline at 213-694-0040. We've got your Black with a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
More honesty than you can handle. More empowerment than you can imagine. You're tuned in to Tavis Smiley.
We got about 4 minutes left in this conversation with Representative Jasmine Crockett to make the most of these final 4 minutes. As I said a moment ago, I believe that the president, the Democrats, have to do something that's going to motivate black people. And for all that we could run the list of things they have done for black people, clearly something's got to be done to give a shot in the arm to raise the level of interest and enthusiasm about a re-election that, frankly, all the polls, this ain't Tavis saying it, all the polls, all the studies, all the surveys are clear. Nobody wants this rematch except Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Nobody else wants it. But this is our reality. But again, my point is not to demonize the president, not to diss him or dog him. I've said many times, I believe the president doesn't get enough credit for what he has done. But to your point, Congresswoman, I am a realist. And I can feel this every day sitting in this chair as I move around the city, I move around the country. I can feel there is a huge enthusiasm gap. Again, I ain't got a crystal ball. I'm not a prognosticator. I don't know what the answer is, but something has to be done. I say all that to ask in these last moments whether or not the president suggesting or saying that he will in fact establish a reparations commission to study, to use your word, this issue would be that shot in the arm for black voters. Or could be.
I don't know. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I'm going to tell you that just like you just referenced a number of polls, we actually get briefed on polling consistently within our caucus. We get it from the Democratic caucus. We also get it from the Black caucus. And honestly, even in my polling from the Black caucus, there's not been any questions around reparations. And ultimately, when they decide to invest in a specific thing, they are going to do it based upon the fact that the data shows them that it moves the needle. So I have no idea, only because no one has actually tested for that is presented to us to know whether or not that's something that will move the needle. I know that in my mind, I was talking about it simply because it's one of those things that just kind of makes sense to me. But whether or not that is what will motivate people, Black folks specifically, I have no freaking idea, because I think that Black people, along with a lot of other people in this country, are consistently feeling like politicians and politics lets them down. And so I don't know how many people would even believe it, because how long have we been talking about reparations in this country and there's been zero movement on it, right? So I'm not really sure if that's going to be the linchpin. For me, what I've been telling people is, listen, you may adore me and love me and like the policies that I fight for, but I can't do this alone. I am part of a bigger team. And so if you really want me to be successful, it's not necessarily about the specific name of the person, but guess what? Donald Trump ain't going to sign half of my stuff into law. He ain't going to sign nothing into law that's got to do with marijuana. He ain't going to sign nothing into law that definitely has anything to do with reparations. Like, I need a partner. And so, you know, what I want people to do is really embrace the full understanding of why we need help on every single level of government. That is why we have a Fani Willis down in Georgia, because it's not just about the presidency. It's about every single level of government and making sure that we've got good partners from the city to the county to the state, as well as all across the federal level. And that, to me, is the fight, is to fight for a better team overall, the team that is going to continue to fight for what's right for you. The fact that I'm having to fight Republicans right now on the Ag Committee because they don't want people to get $6 a day in SNAP benefits. They actually have decided that they want to cut $30 billion out of the farm bill and make sure that people go hungry in these streets as people are protesting the fact that there's famine in Gaza. They are trying to inflict a similar level of pain and make sure that people, $6 don't feed nobody a day anyway, if we gonna be real about it, right? And the fact that you want to cut that money is a problem. But that's not Donald Trump that's doing it. That is the Republicans. So overall, it is a team effort, and it's about making sure that we're voting for the team that may not necessarily be getting everything that we want, but they are fighting for the things that we want.
I appreciate that. Her name is Jasmine Crockett. She has the seat once held by Eddie Bernice Johnson out of Texas. And again, a delight to have her on this program. We'll do it again somewhere down the road. Congresswoman, all the best. Thanks for your time. Have a great rest of the day. I appreciate you.
Thank you. You too.
Good to have you on. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Texas is suing to stop changes to Title IX. The federal regulation is supposed to protect against sex-based discrimination in schools, but it's being expanded by the Biden White House to include gender identity. In a statement, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton says that destroys protections for women. He fears it would force schools to permit biological males to use female restrooms and locker rooms. O.J. Simpson's cause of death is now public. His longtime attorney told TMZ he died of cancer after spending months in.
When